The Captain's Log Radio, with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Well, hello and welcome to the very first ever Captain's Log Radio show. So excited to have you guys here. This has been a long time coming, something I have been thinking about doing for a long time, and now we are live. It's real, it's happening, and we're so excited to be a part of the Outdoor Radio Network. Now listen, this is going to be filmed and recorded, so it's going to be available on YouTube. If you're one of those people who likes to listen to podcasts and radio shows online, you want to watch the video, you want to log in, you can go to the Captain's Log TV YouTube channel, and you can watch this video there. You can also listen and stream on all of your favorite podcast streaming stations like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart Radio. But we're here on the Outdoor Radio Network. So excited for this. So excited to be doing this brand new radio show. And listen, we're going to have a ton of incredible guests, but I couldn't think of anyone better for this very first episode than my good friend, Captain Adam Whitston from the Crystal River area. Now, if you are a fan of the show, of the Captain's Log, you will know that Adam's been on 4 times, and he was the very first guest host we had on the show. Very first episode, season 1, episode 1, there in Yankeetown. So it was just so appropriate to have him on for this very first episode of the Captain's Log Radio. So without any further ado, let's welcome Captain Adam to the show. Dude, how's it going, bro?
Hey, Jonathan. It's good. Yeah, thanks. You're good.
Awesome. Well, listen, I love spending time with you and your family. I love getting on the water with you. We have fished really all over the Southeast, from Louisiana to Yankeetown to Crystal River to Homosassa. Like we have covered some water together. And I know that if we were going fishing in a Walmart parking lot, if I was with you, we would catch fish. I never worried about catching fish with you. But tell our listeners and our viewers, tell me about your guide service, where you mainly fish, and kind of the style that you like to fish.
Okay, so my main business is based out of Crystal River, Florida, out of Pete's Pier Marina. What I offer my clients is a little bit of everything. So I do everything from the most technical flying light tackle stuff out of a 17.5-foot poling skiff. I offer some live bait trips out of a bay boat, for bigger parties, catching redfish, trout, snook, even do a little bit of the near shore stuff, doing some shallow water grouper, doing some false albacore and Spanish mackerel, cobia, stuff like that, any of the migratory species that we get. And my range of what I do, pretty much is from North Yankeetown, Waxahachie River, all the way south to the Whitston National Wildlife Refuge.
Now, if you're not familiar with that area, if you're not familiar from that area, how much water are we talking there? Like what's the stretch?
It's about a 60 to 75 mile stretch, depending on where you're at.
Okay.
At least up and down the coast. And that our coast has got so much water just because we have an expanse, just volume of what we can fish. We've got creeks, we've got open flats, we've got obviously out in the Gulf a little bit. My stretch of coastline in Florida is pretty unique in the fact that we get 1 foot of depth per mile off the shoreline that you go. So that kind of opens up a lot of different stuff. Obviously, you're offshore fishing, you've got a little bit more of a boat ride than other places on the coast, but that's not something that I specialize in. So that's not really, that's not my game. But given that we have as much shallow water as we do, we can target just about everything that swims in the state of Florida. Yeah, that's why I love this area the most. It's so diverse, and you never know what you're going to do.
Well, I want to get into this later on, but if you think about the episodes we have filmed together, we've caught sheep's head, redfish, snook, trout, shallow water grouper. We've never chased tarpon together. We have, but not with the film, not when we're filming, not with the chase boat or
Right.
anything like that, just for fun. But yeah, just a wide variety of species inshore that you can cover and take care of. Do you ever now? I don't think you do it with your clients, but you guys ever go scalloping in that area as well?
I have before. I used to do it about once a year. That stuff has kind of really slowed down a little bit. And with a 2-year-old at home who's not ready quite yet to jump in, we've kind of just steered clear of that for a little bit.
Oh, I get that, man. And that's, for you having both a skiff and a bay boat. I'm in that same situation here with my guide service. Having both boats it's huge for us. We can have those guys or those lady anglers who are just really focused, want to go really technical, want to sight fish, want to cast a fly or a lure at a fish. They want to see it, make that presentation, and watch that fish just erupt on that fly or lure. Or we can have the trips where we have the families and it's mom, dad, and a couple of
Mm.
kids and we go out there and maybe we take a couple dozen shrimp and we're targeting those sheep's head or mangrove snapper or we got shrimp on a popping cork chasing after your speckled sea trout or redfish. Like there's so many things that we can do having both of those boats. And then for us, both of us are married with kids. Having a boat with higher walls is great for the kids. Having that
Yeah.
security of having a deeper hull boat is huge for when the kids get out. My kids, I mean, we'd go out on the skiff all the time with the kids. My kids love their favorite part about the skiff is the live well. So we'll fill it up. They
Yep.
got their own little hot tub. They're sitting in the back chilling. One kid will be up front fishing. Then they swap. If they get tired of fishing or casting or whatever, they're little. My kids are 2 and
Yep.
4. If they want to do something, have a break, man, they get in that little hot tub of theirs and do their living
That's right.
life. So now having the variety is great for, like I said, for your focus hardcore angler all the way to your family group trips. So yeah, dude, love that you do that.
Yep.
Love that that's an option for your clients. Tell me about it's September. You are coming out of your tarpon season. Your tarpon season typically starts what month?
So I start fishing tarpon somewhere around the third week of April, and that will run. So the migratory fish I fish from the third week of April all the way until about July 4th. After that, our resident juvenile fish will push out into the Gulf and kind of make themselves just visible, really. And I'll fish those guys from July all the way until I can't anymore, which is usually sometime around late September, early October, depending on, weather, water temps, all that good stuff. So that's pretty much my tarpon season. And that'll change, the migratory stuff, I only fly fish. I don't take any spin clients for that. And then it's really nice starting in July to grab a live well full of pinfish and then just go watch those 50-pound fish inhale a pinfish and jump 14, 15 times. And here we go. We've got one next to the boat in 5 minutes as opposed to, 45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Love that. Are your juvenile tarpon there like 6 months out of the year? Are they moving through with these big fish and kind of show up and then disappear and then come back, a couple months later? How's that work?
So I'm pretty sure they're here year round. I think what happens is once the water starts to really cool off, they all push up into the springs and they kind of go dormant almost. They don't really feed much during the daytime once they go into those springs because those springs are typically full of people. So once they get around all the manatee tour boats and all the snorkelers and people diving, they kind of really start to shut down a little bit. It's when they get out in the Gulf away from people and they start getting in those channels or in some of those holes that they really start to feed pretty heavily. And that's just a water temperature thing, is what it seems like. They just get comfortable. They feel safe. They don't feel like they're, going to freeze to death. So that's where they go. They'll start to show up in the springs. And we've got some, Pete's Pier is pretty known for having some really big resident fish that hang out at the dock, kind of like, Bud and Mary's in the Keys, except ours are much bigger. So that is no shade on Bud and Mary's. It's just, we grow them bigger here. So, in any given day when I'm cleaning fish out the back, Pete's Pier, we've got, 3 to potentially 13 fish well over 100 pounds, just eyeballing you, waiting on some scrap.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And then you take that fillet or the skin from that fillet and you sling it in there and they just stuck it in. That salmon is unbelievable. It takes them half a second to get that thing in their body. It's amazing. It's incredible. When you're throwing fly at these big fish, do you have a specific color that you prefer? Does it depend on the water quality, water color, water quality, or clarity? That's the word I'm looking for. Or does it depend more on the sky and the cloud coverage? Where are you thinking for fly selection?
So I do a couple of different things. My stretch of coastline for migratory fish is, we'll say, about 25 miles. And in that 25 miles, we can go from what we call a golden bottom, which is basically lime rock mixed with sargassum grass, which is kind of a brown color, to turtle grass, which is dark green, right, which is very different, to sand, which is also very different. So what I look at when I'm doing that is I kind of really focus on what the water clarity is, what the color bottom I'm on top of is, and then what the light is doing. Obviously, with more light, those fish can see a little bit better. Cleaner water, those fish can see a little bit better. And I kind of try to match the bottom a little bit. So, over the sand, I'm fishing a lot more chartreuse, lighter colors. Over the grass, black and purple. Pretty much throwing black and purple at it. Any tarpon that's probably number one color. But I do fish a lot of tans. I don't know. I'm not afraid to try any color.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio. We are in the studio with Captain Adam Whitston from Ridin the Tide Charters. So stoked. This dude, let me tell you, he's legit when it comes to inshore fishing in that Crystal River area, from Yankeetown down to Crystal River. He's got you covered inshore, spin and fly, artificial and bait, from that serious angler to the families. We were talking right before the break on his fly choice for big tarpon. And I want to transition. He was saying, we were talking about, it really depends on your color of sky and your color bottom. Why don't you pick it back up right there on that favorite color, and then we'll go into some lures that we both like.
So, as I was saying before the break, we can fish, from the very southern tip of what I fish, we've got a lot of sand. And over that type of stuff, I like lighter colors, tans and browns, very natural, even going to chartreuse. That type of stuff in a really small pattern, fishing something small like a 1/0 hook, is very beneficial. And then as you move up the coast, you get kind of more into that darker, more tannic water over dark bottom, like turtle grass bottom. So that type of stuff, black and purple, which is every tarpon fisherman's favorite color ever. So that type of stuff works really well. I still do throw the tans and the browns up there. Trying to think what else. The chartreuse stuff will work a little bit up there. If those fish kind of get speed up a little bit, that migration, you may have the fish have seen black and purple all day long, but all of a sudden you throw a chartreuse in there
and think about that whole migration. That whole migration from the Keys all the way to the on the almost the borderline upper part of Central Florida. They have seen a black and purple fly 1,000 times, a million times. So having that presentation, and even it could be the color they want, but it could be just that day they're just in a mood and they don't want to eat it, or the fly just lands just a little too hard, or it lands a little too far away, it's just out of their window, and they don't want to mess with it. Are you looking at what's your favorite fly? Like a cockroach or a tarpon bunny? What are you preferring?
So I would say the biggest two patterns that I throw are the regular, tan and grizzly cockroach, and I'll fish them either in a 2-aught or a size 2. If they get really spooky, I'll drop down the 40-pound bite tippet and throw the size 2. I try not to do that very often because that's me getting pretty desperate to get a bite.
Yeah.
And then, just a regular tarpon toad or a bunny is perfect. Those rabbit tails have got so much movement in them. You can really vary the size on what you have in a tarpon toad or a bunny very easily, and still get great action out of them. You almost can't fish them the wrong way. You can fish them really slow. You can do short and fast ticks and get them to just bounce. I mean, you can do anything with them. I think that makes them a really good, effective tarpon fly.
Yeah, on this coast, I'm in the Indian River lagoon section of the east central coast of Florida, the Space Coast. I don't throw tarpon or their flies at tarpon with clients often, unless they're the juveniles, the smaller fish. But when we do have those chances, it's black and purple the majority of the time. Even this painting behind me, I don't know if you can see that fly right where I'm pointing. It's black and purple. That just seems to be the color. But for the juvenile fish on my area, I like throwing schminnows, like a white schminnow, because they're really focused in on glass minnows over here. A gurgler first thing in the morning, a little popper fly that can just bloop, bloop, make noise. And you got to be patient. These fish come up and inhale that fly. They explode on it. But if you react too quickly, which is your natural reaction, this fish just exploded on your fly and it startles you. It freaks you out because a lot of times you don't have a wake. You don't have something pushing at you. You just have all of a sudden an explosion. And so your reaction is, whoa. If you respond too quickly, you're going to pull that fly right out of its mouth. Same with if we're throwing artificial. Now, if we're throwing artificial, most of the time it's like a DOA cow. They're 3-inch swim bait. That is subsurface. When you feel that fish, he's got it. He's already sucked it in, inhaled it, turned its head, and then you can come tight on them and hook them. My favorite way to catch tarpon first thing in the morning, I'm talking little to jumbos, 100-pounders, is I probably have one hanging around in my office, is a topwater plug. I love watching them when it's slicked out and they're rolling. And I mean, it's so quiet that you can hear that sucking sound, You can hear that roll and their water rolling over their backs and their tails. That gets me going. That gets me just adrenaline. I got goosebumps right now talking about it, just thinking about it. And then having clients on the boat who've never done this before, never seen a fish that big before. It's like, holy cow, man. And then if you throw that plug, you got to be ready. You got to be able to cast. And you watch them roll and you sling it over there really quick and pop, 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 pop. They inhale it. They go bananas. Sometimes they smack it and it goes flying out of the air. Snook do that too, or it just goes flying. Trout do that too. But a lot of times they explode on it and suck it in. And same deal. You give them half a second and then you come tight. And then it's crazy. And as soon as they feel,
Yeah.
this is my favorite part about tarpon. As soon as they feel that hook, what do? They get airborne. They start jumping and dancing and just going bananas. And it's the coolest, most exciting, heartbreaking 5 seconds of your life. Sometimes, sometimes they stay buttoned, sometimes they throw it. It's okay. It doesn't matter, dude. You just had a 100-pound fish go crazy, crazy. And so yeah, they came off. Who cares? That was awesome. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And then next thing you know, your 4-hour half-day charter's over, and the fish are still rolling. And you're like, bro, we got to
Yep.
go, but I don't want to go. Let's just keep fishing. Like, I've been late for
Yep.
weddings. I have been late. I have gotten rushed clients back to the airport because they're gonna miss their flight, but we had to get one more. Like, it's absolutely insane what these fish do. And then once you catch one, once you get one to
Yep.
eat, even if you don't catch it, your life changes. You want to do it
Absolutely.
over and over and over again. And then it becomes frustrating. I stole this line. I'm gonna be honest. I stole this line from Captain C.A. Richardson. And these fish are my personal favorite frustration. Because some days, dude, you've experienced. Some days they'll eat
Oh, yeah.
anything. Every cast,
Yep.
doesn't matter. They're just in a mood to eat and they're hungry and they're aggressive and they're going after and they're fighting each other for it. But most times, if it's not perfect, if it's not, everything has to line up. And if it doesn't,
Yep.
it doesn't matter. And that is so frustrating for us as guides because people are paying good money to be on the boat, money they've worked hard for, money they've earned, money they've saved. Now they're excited. They make the trip to go fishing with you or for me or what, just to go after these fish. And then the fish are being stupid. They're just not wanting to respond. Nothing is more frustrating than an unwilling fish on the water.
Yep.
And as guides, dude, it's stressful. Like, hey, we gotta put fish in the boat. We gotta get
Yeah.
these fish to eat. We gotta figure this out. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the excitement is figuring out how to get them to eat. But it's also stressful because, man, my heart, I want to get these people on fish and I want them to eat it. I want them to experience that catch and watch it go
Yep.
bananas. I say all the time, 3 jobs have to happen. Number one, you and I as the guide need to put our clients on the fish. Number 2, the client has to make the presentation. If the fish is here
Yeah.
and they're casting 15 feet the other direction, it ain't going to work. It's got to be in the right spot. And number 3, the fish has to eat it. And if any of the 3 of those jobs don't happen, you don't catch fish. I can put you in front of the fish, but if you're not making the cast, you're not catching the fish. And if you make the cast
All right.
and the fish don't eat it, you're not catching the fish. So if one of those things doesn't fall into place, we're not catching fish. So it's crucial. But man, I mean, there's a reason why they call him the Silver King. There's a reason why
Yeah.
these fish are chased, and so many people come to Florida to catch these tarpon. Oh man. Okay, you got me all excited about tarpon, and I'm not going to be fishing for them for a while now. But the other love of my life with fishing inshore, and we've got about a minute left on this segment before we hit another hard break. But redfish, I love chasing redfish, and you and I have caught some redfish. We've chased them in Louisiana. We've chased them there in East Central or West Central Florida together. We've chased them in East Central Florida together. But when it comes
Yep.
to redfish, I cannot help but get excited when I see those fish tailing.
Mhm.
We do a lot of sight fishing for them. We do a lot more blind casting now. Our water's finally cleaning up in this area, but when you get them bunched up and they're tailing, Oh, man, let me tell you, that is probably my favorite way to find them and catch them. But we are coming up on another break. When we get back from the break, we'll pick up that discussion talking about redfish and snook. We've had some pretty exciting snook episodes. But before we do that, let me introduce you to Icon Coolers, where innovation meets durability. Whether you're camping, hunting, or fishing, Icon Coolers keeps your drinks icy cold and your food fresh for days. Built tough with premium insulation and rugged construction, Icon Coolers are designed to withstand any environment. Choose from a range of sizes and colors to match your style. Icon Coolers have been cooling my adventures one trip at a time, so check out iconcoolers.com. Icon Coolers, cool for life.
Thanks for listening to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
This is the Captain's Log Radio. I'm your host, Captain Jonathan Moss, and with me today, we've got Captain Adam Whitston, Ridin the Tide Charters. We've had a great discussion so far, talking about Tarpon, talking about his guide service, talking about just fishing inshore in that west central region of Florida. Before we left the break, or before we went into break, we were talking about redfish. And, we were talking about redfish tailing. In our area here in East Central Florida, we lost all of our grass. And grass is super important. Clean water is super important. You need clean, clear water to feed your grass. What I mean by that is sunlight is penetrating through the water. It's going to feed the grass through photosynthesis. That grass is crucial for an estuary. The grass is an estuary. Think about what lives in the grass. You got microorganisms that are feeding shrimp and crabs and pinfish and baitfish. And then that becomes their little home. And then that becomes a place where the predator fish, your redfish, your trout, your snook, your black drum, I've even seen tarpon get in a couple of feet of water, cruise in the grass flats, looking for these bait fish and these shrimp and these crabs, just this food for them. If there's no food, you're not going to have fish. Now that we're seeing the grass coming back and thriving in Mosquito Lagoon and the northern part of the Indian River Lagoon, you have these potholes, places for these predator fish like redfish to hide. And the importance of that is now they have a place to really tuck in. And as the bait comes out of the grass, or these pinfish or mullet are swimming through, these redfish will erupt on them. On top of that, you'll have these zones where the redfish will bunch together, school together, and they don't have to be big groups. It could be a single. It could be doubles, triples. It could be 150 of them. I've seen hundreds together tailing, and it is such a sight. But what they're doing, if you think about how a redfish is designed, there's one over my shoulder here. There's mouth is on the bottom of his face. So think about this is the redfish's face. And if you're listening only, you're not watching on the video. Their face, on the bottom of their face is their mouth, and they'll push down their face into the ground to pin shrimp and crabs and pinfish, to pin their bait. And as a result, because of their angle, their tails come out of the water, and it is like happy fish, happy captain, happy angler. It's just a beautiful sight to see these fish waving at you. And when I see that, man, slow down. That's my first thought. Okay. I don't want to approach these fish too hot, too fast. The skiff is quiet. We're technical pulling skiffs. They're designed to float shallow and be quiet. Okay. But they still will feel movement. Okay. Even to how you put your push pole in the water. Okay. If you're using a trolling motor, again, they're going to hear that and feel that. If there's a lot of grass, you could be churning up the grass. It depends on your water depth, but being stealthy and ninja-like is huge in this scenario. Now, some days, and Adam, I'm sure you've experienced this before, it didn't matter. They were just so focused on what they were doing. The birds are flocking. You ever seen that with the seagulls? Man,
Oh yeah.
that's a telltale sign. Hey, there's fish there. As those seagulls, those terns are hovering over these fish. And what's happening is the redfish are pushing that bait up. They're trying to escape because they're about to get eaten. We would
Mm-hmm.
escape too. And they get to the surface, and these birds are now smacking on the water and picking up those bait fish and the shrimp. And they're so focused, the redfish, that they're not freaking out. They're not pushing out. When they're like that, it can be easy pickings, right? Easy
Yeah.
pickings. In your area, do they tail as much, or are they more staged on oysters, rock?
So we get a bigger tidal flow than you guys get, obviously.
Yeah. We
So
get
for us,
zero.
our water has
Zero.
got yeah, yeah. So we get about 3.5 feet ish every 5 hours and 48 minutes. Um, what our fish look for, typically about the last hour of the outgoing tide, and it's got to be a low tide. Like it's got to be probably about a point zero or a negative to get consistent tailing redfish. Um, those fish will start to push off the bank and onto those open flats out in the deeper water because the banks get to be, 8 inches or so. So they could tail up on the bank, but the bait's not there. So the bait pushes out. So the tide has to go out even further for those open flats to get, to that 8 inch mark usually. So when that happens for us, a lot of our fish, because those flats are so vast, they start to single and double out. So we don't really see, like schools of 5, 10, 15 that'll tail, but we definitely have, you'll see a single here and there'll be one there, another 120 feet from him, there'll be another one, and then there may be two tailing, 300 feet past them. We do get a really good fishery for tailing redfish. It's just really specific as to when and where it happens. And it's because they're not in those bigger schools, our fish are tailing redfish on our side is difficult. They're so focused on what's going on, like within their 1 foot cone in front of looking down, as far as what they see. Now, what they feel, like what you talked about earlier, they're paying attention to any type of movement, any type of sound, any type of vibration, anything. So because of that, your cone of where that bait has to be is very small. And your cone of where you can land that bait or fly is also very small. So, I'm sure you do the same thing. We try to cast past them and a little bit out in front of them and then bring it back to them slowly.
Yeah.
And once it's there, you have to be very cautious about how that bait moves. You have to really think about how you're trying to present it. So is it supposed to be a shrimp where it jumps up out of the grass? And if so, that bait's got to be just a little bit further away. Whereas if, you're trying to make it like a crab, you're just going to kind of slowly drag it in front of them until they see it, right? So all those little minute details make a difference for us for tailing redfish, for sure.
I instruct my clients, and I show them this before we get to them, but I'd like them to cast past the fish. Okay. I tell them, think about being in front of the fish and then beyond the fish, because I don't want that lure to land on their heads. If it lands on their heads, it's over.
Right.
It's freak them out. And then flip that bail over, like before that lure hits the water, right before it hits the water. Keep that rod up high and crank.
Yep.
Okay. crank, 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 crank. That way the lure skims on the surface, so you know where it is. That fish is showing you where they are. As
Mm.
soon as your lure gets below the surface, you don't know where it's at. So if you can bring the lure to them gently, don't be like burning it back, freaking them out. You've got
Right.
to still be chill, but you're fast enough. Keep that lure on the surface, slow enough where you're not making a big disturbance, and then bring
Mm.
that lure into the zone and drop it down. I
Right.
like using a DOA shrimp. Ty Nelson, the owner and founder of Florida Fish Brock, showed me this, and I've used now. It's my favorite. But I'll get a DOA shrimp and I'll bite the tail off, like a couple segments beyond the tail off. I get an owner 3/0 eighth ounce twist lock hook, and I'll rig that thing backwards, and then I'll feed it through, and I don't even skin hook it. I just push it flat. I don't like to. I like having that hook just exposed. Sling that thing out
Mm.
there, rod tip up, reel, bring it into the zone, and just like you said, bring it in softly, drop it down, and pop, and wait. It's so you
Yeah.
want to reel. You think about when you're using a lure, you're
Yeah.
casting and reeling. You can't, because as soon as you get
Yeah.
6 inches from that fish's face, they're not focused on it anymore, right? They're focused right on this little plate right in front of them. So you got to get that lure
Mm-hmm.
in their zone and into them, and leave it long enough for them to see it. And then when you feel that tension or see that tail go down, and then all of a sudden, oh, and you come tight. It's awesome. Now, would you say when you instruct your clients, do you to make that cast if there's a group of them? Um, do we want to cast them like in the middle of those fish, or do you want to pick an edge? How are you determining which direction they're going? How's that working for you?
So if I've got a group of redfish, at least on my coast, it's going to be 5 or more. And typically when there's that many fish for us, they're going to eat it. Like it's, as long as the cast is there, it's 99% it's going to happen.
They'll get competitive with each other. If they're not spooked, they'll get competitive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I look for when I see that there's multiple fish tailing in one spot, what I look for is to see if they're all grouped up and all feeding the same direction. And if they are, then I try to get my clients to cast just a little bit in front of them and a lot past them and do what you said. My approach to fishing groups like that is a little bit different. I like to have a paddle tail and to keep it moving because those fish will get competitive with each other. So, a 3 or a 4-inch paddle tail is good as long as the 4-inch paddle tail is not a big body and it's going to land hard. So cast past them just a little bit in front of them and just slow roll it right in front of the group, maybe 2 feet in front of them. If there's, 3 or more, or probably, like I said, 5 or more, one of them is going to feel it and get up and go move to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's been the most productive way for me to do it with bigger groups.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, this is the Captain's Log Radio. I'm your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. And with me, one of my good buddies, someone I enjoy fishing with, Captain Adam Whitston. We are our last segment of the show. We talked about so much today, gotten a ton of great information from Adam on casting to tarpon, casting to redfish, fly selection, lure selection. But this last little bit, I want to talk about the 4 episodes that we have filmed together. The first one, I don't think I've ever told anybody this publicly. I mean, and I know Jack has. Jack is our main editor and camera guy extraordinaire. I'm gonna tell him anyways. He won't care. He's told people before.
No.
He's done it on radio, so it's fair game for me now. Let me tell you, my our first day of filming. I am, doing something new. Of course, there's some nerves or some stress. You've never done something before. You want to try to figure it out. You want to make it as good and easy and seamless as possible. So I go to get gas. Adam's like a couple hours for me, and I go to get gas and some subs at the Wawa. Not sponsored. They're just delicious. It was just Hoagie Fest. Hoagie Fest. I could have one right now. Actually, it'd be delicious. So I grabbed all that. I ordered my stuff, and I go to pay for it, and my credit card is not working. It's been compromised. Overnight, someone got my credit card number, and my credit card company shut it down. So now I'm like, uh-oh, I don't have any money. It's the only card I have. Like, what am I going to do? So my wife is home. We just had a baby, our first. I text my dad because he's always up, and I'm like, bro, I need you to come bail me out, bro. Give me some money. So he brought me a credit card. I bought some gas. I bought the subs. Off I went. I'm texting him. I was like, bro, I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. I'm also that morning meeting with Ty Nelson because he's got new reels, Florida Fishing Product
Yep.
Osprey reels for me for the show. So we met at a Waffle House off of I-75, like I don't know where, like right where the Turnpike and 75 come together. What's that town called? I don't, doesn't matter. We meet there. And I texted him, I was like, bro, I'm late. I'm so sorry. And he drove like an hour to get there. Anyways, pick those up. I call Adam, like, bro, it's going to be like, I'm late. And now I'm like stressed out. I'm really stressed out. And I had to go. I didn't know where we were going. Like where I fish, there are not bathrooms. Okay. There are, they're just not opened. So I was like, let me stop. Let me make sure we're good to go. So we're going to go on the boat and have to come back in. So stopped at a gas station to go to the bathroom. I get out of the bathroom and I'm just praying, God, Jesus, like, I just need you to calm my nerves. Because this whole time I've called Jack like 50 times and he hasn't answered. Can't get a hold of him. Called his roommate. He won't answer. So I don't know if Jack's on his way. I don't know if Jack's dead. I don't know if Jack's sleeping. I don't have a clue where Jack is. It's just one thing after the other. So I'm just praying, Jesus, listen, I need to chill out. And if you want, like, I'm about to like invest into like a TV show and filming. If you want this to happen, I need you to make it happen because right now everything seems to be against me. And then my GPS, because I've never been to where we're going before. We were filming in Yankeetown, Florida. Never been to this town or this boat ramp, nothing. Follow my GPS. And I said, amen to Jesus, right? Finished my prayer. And my GPS goes, turn left now on Follow Your Dreams Parkway. And I was like, well, if that ain't a sign, I don't know what is, man. So I kind of chilled out. Adam was already there, had the boat in the water ready to go. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where Jack is. He's not here. He's not answering his phone. He's probably sleeping. So, hey, dude, what are we doing? We're two guys that love fishing. Let's go fishing. So we did. And you know what? What happened that morning? We didn't catch a single fish. And wasn't there a
We
tournament?
did not.
Wasn't there a tournament going on, like an airboat tournament or something?
I think there was, and we had a stronger cold front than what they predicted for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
it was freezing. I
Yeah.
forgot about that part. Yeah, I was in flip flops and you were making fun of me, and I was freezing.
Was.
So we went out fishing. There was a tournament going on, boats flying around. Didn't catch anything. It was cold. Jack finally texted me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I overslept. My alarm didn't go off. Whatever. I'm on my way. I'm like, bro, be safe. Number one, get here when you get here. Number two, pack some clothes because it's cold. And we'll see you whenever you get here. So we went back. I don't know. It was 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock when he showed up, and we went fishing.
Yeah.
And that probably worked out in our favor because the sun came up,
I think it did.
warmed the water up. we got real shallow because that shallower water is going to warm up faster. And we got on the fish. We caught redfish, and you caught one like you're like I was pulling you, and I was like, you said Jonathan, wait, there's one right here, and you just boop, pitched it in the water like Kane pulled it, stuck his face. It was awesome. And that was our day. That was our first episode, man. We caught redfish together in Yankeetown. And then from there,
Yep.
we've done listen. If you want, we talked about tarpon, but if you want to fight an animal and have them like make you mad and hurt you and like hurt your feelings, and you think you're strong, you think you're a good fisherman, you think you got good gear, you think you're strong, bro. Chucking these giant like 8-9 inch lip plugs, these big rapalas, in what we were in like 6-7 feet of water on these rock piles, giant grouper, inshore gag grouper in the wintertime. It's listen, I love it. I loved it. You're cranking and you're cranking as fast as you can, and then it just stops. And sometimes you think you have a rock, and sometimes you do have a rock.
Sometimes you do, yeah.
But these fish, power. They're mean. They're mean, dude. Have you ever had someone like, nah, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. This hurts.
Yes and no. I've had people that like actually legitimately have gotten scared after the first one. Like they'll start reeling, they'll get a fish that eats the plug, and they start taking steps towards the back of the boat, which is the wrong direction, by the way. So, I tell everybody, pound for pound, that is the hardest fighting fish that I catch. Like the tarpon thing is very different. You've got a 6,000 to 8,000 size reel, and you've got a decent amount of drag on it, 10, 12, 14 pounds maybe. But these spinning reels that we're using for those grouper are quite literally like I take a pair of pliers and crank the drag knob down. So nothing's coming off of it. And if it does, you've got a real one.
You got a real one for sure.
So it's a broomstick in your hand with this piece of metal that's essentially holding all your line until you close the bail. And then it's just a winch, basically. So the way that I describe it to everybody is you hook a dump truck, and the dump truck then drives the opposite direction while you're hooked to it. So I tell everybody from the beginning, before you cast the plug, have a good footing, put your weight on the back part of your feet, and then cast and start reeling. And that tends to kind of prepare people a little bit for, okay, this guy's actually telling me my stance matters. Maybe I should pay attention to this. And, occasionally you'll get I had one client that told his 22-year-old son, you're going to feel 3 little taps, and on the third tap, then you set the hook, right?
Oh, he bass fishing?
His first cast, he gets hit by a 30-incher, and it is just stuck, like just stops, and the kid just stumbles his feet, and it's hilarious. He's like, 3 taps, huh? Yeah, 3 taps.
Have you ever had someone like you thought they were going to fall in the water? Thought they were going to get pulled in or lose a rod?
One. So the biggest gag grouper that I landed in shallow was like 22, 23 pounds.
Wow.
This guy's daughter had hooked it, and it had followed the plug all the way to the back of the boat. So just as well as I do, this water is crystal clear. Like you can clearly see the rocks, and you can watch this fish come up and eat. So this fish followed all the way to the back of the boat and ate the plug, I don't know, maybe 10 feet from the rod tip, turned and ran probably 75, 80 feet back to the rock and stopped 5 feet short. So the whole time, this girl is, barely got a bend in the rod, kind of pointing straight at the fish, and it's pulling 22 pounds of drag. She steps up onto the back deck and starts walking backwards as her dad grabs her belt loop and is just holding on. That's the closest we've come. I've had people fall over, like in the bottom of the boat before, and still hold on to the rod. So,
man, well, listen, if you're making the investment in buying tackle, okay, and you want to go after these fish on your own, don't listen. You got to have the right gear. If you want to fish for tarpon, you can use the same setup, an 8-foot heavy or an 8-foot extra heavy rod, paired with an 8,000 series reel. And it's no joke. You need all of that. When I film and when I'm fishing, I have the TFO tactical inshore tactical rods, 8-foot extra heavy. They make a 7-foot extra heavy that I also like. I've caught some big snook with that. But you need every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
You need every bit of that gear. And then the Florida Fishing Products Osprey 8000, there's actually some top secret stuff. They're coming out with the 10,000 soon. And that's going to be a game changer for your big tarpon and these grouper, because they don't have room. They're not going down, right? They're going to the rock.
Right.
And they don't have far to go to the rock. And if you don't stop those fish, if you don't turn those fish around, you're going to break off. Captain Adam Whitston, Ridin the Tide Charters. Where can they find you, dude?
So you can Google Ridin the Tide Charters. That'll take you to my website. Ridin the Tide Charters on Instagram and or Facebook. Also will take you to my social media pages.
Yeah, and I'll put it up on the description of this video and the radio show description. But this is the Captain's Log Radio. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.